Tonight, Q&A.
Let's go to the first question you asked.
The president takes questions from reporters.
Thank you, Mr. President.
His first press conference after 64 days in the nation's highest office. And
what do you think the Biden administration should do?
CBN News is on the southern border with exclusive footage of children and families.
The reason why I do what I do is the family.
Plus,
racism continues to occur within the ranks.
Alarm bells over extremism in the military.
We have to be very cautious not to infringe upon the constitutional rights of the other 99.9%.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
From the filibuster to immigration, the president takes questions from reporters in his first official press conference. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Thanks for joining us. This presser, 64 days in the making. And if you ask the White House press corps, long overdue.
That's right, Jenna. In fact, it came longer into an Oval Office term than any other president in modern history. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now. Eric, the question on the minds of many is, how did President Biden do?
Well, John and Jenna, we're told he had been preparing for this press conference all week long, and today he seemed confident as he stood behind the podium. He started off touting the American Rescue Plan and vaccine successes, even increasing his original goal of 100 million shots in his first 100 days to 200 million. But immigration was clearly what reporters wanted to talk about.
The idea that I'm going to say, which I would never do, if an unaccompanied child ends up at the border, we're just going to let him starve to death and stay on the other side. No previous administration did that either, except Trump.
The president said the problems at the southern border are not new, and migrants aren't coming just because they think he's such a nice guy.
The reason they're coming is that it's the time they can travel with the least likelihood of dying on the way because of the heat in the desert, number one. Number two, they're coming because of the circumstances in country.
He says 5,000 more beds have been made available at the border at Fort Bliss, and that the U.S. would be better prepared to deal with the situation there if it had not been for the previous administration.
What he did, he dismantled all the elements that exist to deal with what had been a problem and has been continued to be a problem for a long time. He, in fact, shut down the number of beds available.
On the practice known as the filibuster in the Senate, the president said he's for reforming it, but not necessarily abolishing it.
So it's being abused in a gigantic way.
If not, why not abolish it if it's a relic of the Jim Crow era?
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible.
On China, the president said the U.S. should be in competition, but not necessarily in confrontation with them.
But they have an overall goal to become the leading country in the world, the wealthiest country in the world, and the most powerful country in the world. That's not going to happen on my watch.
And what about the political future of the president?
No, an answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
Interesting that the president gave that response about running again when just yesterday the White House rebranded the Biden administration to the Biden-Harris administration, seeming to raise the profile of the vice president. The president said amid all of the challenges facing the country right now, he was hired to solve problems and help give people a peace of mind, and that's what he intends to do. John and Jenna.
All right, White House correspondent Eric Phillips, thank you. Well, to Capitol Hill, big tech and the issue of censorship in the spotlight today. Democrats demanding Facebook, Google, and Twitter step up their censorship. The House Committee on Energy and Commerce chairman suggesting the platforms are guilty of aiding and abetting what Democrats consider misinformation by those they deem extremists.
It is now painfully clear that neither the market nor public pressure will force these social media companies to take the aggressive action they need to take to eliminate disinformation and extremism from their platforms. And therefore, it's time for Congress and this committee to legislate and realign these companies' incentives. Today, our laws give these companies and their leaders a blank check to do nothing, rather than limit the spread of disinformation.
I don't think anyone wants a world where you can only say things that private companies judge to be true, where every text message, email, video, and post has to be fact-checked before you hit send. It's not possible to catch every piece of harmful content without infringing on people's freedoms in a way that I don't think that we'd be comfortable with as a society.
And while Democrats were calling for more censorship because of misinformation, at least one committee Republican spoke out about what he sees as a disproportionate level of conservative censorship. He called it un-American.
Well, turning overseas, deep concern over a show of force out of North Korea. Pardon me. South Korean officials are urging Pyongyang to uphold its commitments for peace. Last night, North Korea apparently launched 2 ballistic missiles like those shown in images from earlier tests. The latest salvo comes just days after the regime launched 2 short-range missiles Sunday. President Biden warning today that there will be responses if North Korea chooses to escalate.
To the U.S.-Mexico border, among the migrants coming across the border are many young children traveling with their parents. Families with children under 6 years old are not sent back to Mexico. Instead, they're allowed to stay until their legal proceedings.
And as you can imagine, many of these families need a lot of help once they arrive, and one Texas Catholic charity is stepping up. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson shows us how.
The journey to the U.S. is difficult for any migrant hoping to come into the country, but it's especially hard for those under the age of 6. Our CBN News team on the border saw that firsthand. Many of the families are in crisis when they reach the U.S.
Children, that's what concerns me, is the kids, the babies. They need milk, they need things, and so being able to provide them enough water, enough food, enough things that a mom will need.
CBN News senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener is on the southern border and spoke to Sister Norma Pimentel of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley.
We take them from the Border Patrol so we can make sure they're safe, because they're moms and children and families that are exposed to great dangers and traffickers and others that want to take advantage of them.
Families who pass their COVID tests come in for respite until they figure out where they're going, while those who don't recover in a local hotel that allows COVID cases.
They will get a chance to eat, to take a shower, change clothing, to get what a family needs that has been traveling for a while.
Despite reports of record numbers of people crossing the border, Pimentel tells CBN News they've seen higher numbers before.
Yesterday was 600, the day before 7 something, but we haven't reached those high numbers that we did in 2019 in the previous administration. And so now I'm certain that if things go as they are moving forward, they more than likely will see those numbers again later in the year.
Pimentel hopes the Biden administration addresses why migrants are fleeing their homes to begin with.
It is our responsibility to, whether laws, policies, responses, whatever we do, we don't lose sight of their humanity, because then we lose our humanity in the process.
And she encourages Americans not to be afraid of those coming into the country.
We as people of the church are here to show that we're in solidarity with them. We're here to be present with them, to accompany them in their struggles, in their pain, and in their successes.
A group of Republican senators plans to go to the border this weekend, and they are criticizing the president for not doing so as well. But President Biden says he does not want to overwhelm federal officials who are trying to control the situation with a presidential visit. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Abigail. And on the topic of the president, today, his first official press conference. Joining us now to discuss that is CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, let's talk about that presser. What were your big takeaways?
Foot view here. I mean, I thought it was an absolute train wreck, and that's being kind to train wrecks. By the way, look, it's sad to watch, and I've said this all along. I mean, but he looked lost half the time. I mean, and that's not from a conservative or a liberal, Republican or Democrat point of view. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that he was struggling mightily during that press conference. We can get into all of the topics, but I mean, the fact that you are having to talk about North Korea policy from a United States standpoint and have to read off a prepared remark. That's what he was doing, Jenna. Jenna, he was reading U.S. policy off of his notes. It wasn't like he was looking down at his notes. He was actually reading like a statement, like a press secretary was. My goodness gracious, this is the President of the United States. That's some of my takeaway today.
David, on the topic of the border, President Biden was asked whether he bears some responsibility for the surge we're seeing based on his messaging. He never really did answer that.
No, he didn't answer that because he's going to say that it's not his fault at all. As a matter of fact, he talked about how he was a good guy. And you know, if they're coming because I'm a good guy, that's really nice, is what he says, but that's not true. But it is true. And by the way, don't take my word for it. Take literally the media's word for it. The media is even understanding and acknowledging the issue here, which is that Joe Biden, in essence, said you're going to be treated humanely when you come across the border. And guess what? We have a crisis at the border because he, in essence, was putting in air quotes, come on in. And so even the media, like Celia Varga and some other reporters there, were challenging him on that because they understand that that's not just a narrative, but that's a fact.
David, speaking of the media, NBC's Kristen Welker asked about when reporters will be allowed into border facilities. Biden said he didn't know. David, there's a clear and warranted frustration among the press corps about the lack of access.
Well, absolutely. I mean, is this the United States or is this China? I mean, it really comes down to that. Why is the press corps not allowed in there? And Joe Biden, let's be clear, let's give him some credit. He says, oh, you can go in, ... until we get that plan figured out, and then we'll let you in. Really? So let me get this straight. You're going to wait till it's a good photo op, and then you'll let the media in. I mean, John, I've never seen anything like this before, and I've got to tell you, the media, good for Kristen Welker to ask the question, but where was the follow-up? She did have a short follow-up, but it doesn't seem like there's all this media outrage out there. Why is there no more media outrage about this?
David, President Biden, he also addressed the issue of the Senate filibuster, of course, requiring 60 votes to pass legislation, not just the simple majority, 50. He seemed to signal he's open to getting rid of it for issues like voting rights. This can't be understated, David. This is a big deal.
Jenna, you're absolutely right. This is the whole enchilada. You know, everything I talked about up to this point in the live shot, I mean, take it, as analysis. But the legislative filibuster, H.R. 1, that's the ball game in town right now. And let's be clear, what Joe Biden signaled in the press conference today is that he was in a certain place 6 months ago, then 3 months ago, and here we are. He keeps moving down the field on this legislative filibuster because he understands that H.R. 1 if he can get H.R. 1 through with 50 votes, remember that is changing, federalizing all elections in America. If he can get that through, immigration reform, gun control, it is everything to Democrats. This was a pipe dream by progressives months ago, years ago. Now we are much closer to reality because Joe Biden is indeed embracing exactly that.
David, you're a veteran of Washington politics. We got to ask, what questions would you still like to have asked tonight, and what would you like to have seen at the presser?
Well, look, I mean, I would have liked to know a little bit more about when was the last time he was tested. Americans have a right to know that from a mental health standpoint. I think that's important. So I think that was the big one. And in terms of the border, there's a lot of other different questions I would have had. But I would have harped a little bit more on the mental health aspect of all of this because, look, this is clearly where some of this narrative is going. And Eric touched on this at the top of the show, the Biden-Harris administration. I would have asked a question about that. Why the need to all of a sudden now term everything the Biden-Harris administration? What's up with that? He was not pressed on that either.
Yeah, he did get the question about whether he'll run in 2024, kind of hearkening to that. But David, just about 30 seconds left. Do you think we'll see it'll be another 64 days before we see one of these again?
Well, Jenna, now we know why it took 64 days to have a press conference. I mean, that was brutal. So, no, I don't think you're going to see a press conference in 64 days. I'm not sure if you're going to see a press conference in 164 days at this point. But look, I think the bar was so low that Joe Biden was literally right there at that low bar. And so, of course, the media will, of course, call it serviceable. And if you're getting serviceable with Joe Biden, I guess that's a victory if you're in Joe Biden world.
All right, David Brody, we will leave it there this evening. Thank you so much. Great to get your insights.
You bet, Jenna. Thanks, Sean.
Coming up, hopeful signs of an economic comeback, what the new jobless numbers mean for stronger hiring and consumer spending.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch. Thanks for joining us. Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Well, welcome back. Tonight, a bright spot in the economy. Stronger hiring and consumer spending is driving the economic revival, with jobless claims falling to the lowest level of the pandemic. Unemployment claims fell to 684,000 last week. That's down from 781,000 a week earlier. Claims are at their lowest since mid-March of last year, before economic lockdowns across the world triggered millions of layoffs.
Well, with more on the economy, we now have Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate. Mark, those jobless numbers came in lower than expected, dropping below 700,000 for the first time in the pandemic economy. Is this a sign of better things to come?
It may well be, John. I think what we've experienced over the past year has been a shortage of pleasant surprises, and if we get numbers that are coming and that come in better than expected, we'll take that. But let's remember, we're just talking about new claims for unemployment benefits under the traditional state programs. All told, we have about 19 million individuals on some form of assistance right now, so we are far from where we need to be.
Mark, Washington lawmakers are exploring boosting the corporate tax rate and raising taxes on the wealthy as a way to boost revenue and as a way to fund the president's priorities. Mark, is now the right time to do that with such a fragile economy?
Well, first of all, I have no expectation that will happen in the near term. So now is probably something that could be taken off the table in the sense of an imminent risk either for the economy or for a change in policy. But listen, whether it was under this president or the past one, all kinds of legislation has been passed at high cost without paying for it along the way. At some point, we do have to pay for these programs. They are right now is paying $2,400 for the cost of the current year's federal interest payments, $300 billion in total. So this is a lot of money that is coming due, and it has to be paid for somewhere, and it's not going to just be via what President Biden would like to do. There's going to have to be any number of different solutions that are looked at here.
Mark, Bankrate's out with a new survey. It shows just under 60% of people with money in stocks actually think the market is rigged against the individual investor. Mark, why is that, and is that something that should be a cause of concern?
Well, it concerns me, John, because ultimately, for someone who's saving for retirement over the long term, exposure to the stock market is absolutely necessary. And so what I would say, is my own opinion, is that I don't believe the market is rigged against the average person. I believe that, obviously, large institutions more capital to bring to bear. They have better technology. That's true. But this phrase, the democratization of the stock market, has come into play in recent times because we have the opportunity to save less for access to the stock market, such as commission-free trades. The cost of getting into the market is lower. The cost of also selling stocks is lower. So I would say that individuals might want to do just a little bit more research on that question over time, and by all means make their savings, including retirement savings, a top priority. It's necessary.
Final question, Mark. Today is Equal Pay Day, which marks how far into the year the average woman has to work to earn as much as her male counterparts. Some are pointing out that what we should be focused on is pay and not on pay, but not wealth. Your thoughts on all of this, Mark?
Yeah, I think some people are saying we need to focus on wealth, not only pay, because they're both incredibly important over time. If a woman is not making as much as a comparable man in the current year, that accumulates. The other part is that women need to save longer because they outlive men. And so longevity of savings is absolutely important. They are all important issues, and I'm so glad to see that we're having a conversation about that, because women have been disproportionately hurt by the most recent downturn.
Important conversation indeed. Mark Hamrick with Bankrate. Always appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
And when we come back, alarm bells and a congressional gut check over a rise in extremism in the military.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Well, welcome back. People both inside and outside the Pentagon worry that extremism is on the rise in the military.
Yeah, the concern is so real. Lawmakers today held a hearing about it on Capitol Hill. CBN's Paul Strand listened in.
During this House Armed Services hearing, a representative of the Southern Poverty Law Center rang some alarm bells about extremism in the military.
We have the report or survey results from the Military Times last year that reported over 50% of service members of color say that they witness racist or white supremacist behavior within the ranks.
Racism continues to occur within the ranks, and we must work to root out this bigotry and deal with that problem in a comprehensive manner.
It was pointed out some 20% of those arrested for the January 6th takeover of the Capitol building were present or former military members. And the SPLC's Brooks added,
over the last several years, SPLC researchers and journalists have identified dozens of former and active military personnel among the membership of some of the country's most dangerous and violent white supremacist groups.
But First Liberty Institute's Michael Berry warned the military could be in danger of lumping in good people of faith with radical extremists.
I'm pulling directly from Department of Defense publications here, labeling evangelical Christians and Catholics in the same category that they categorize Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and the Ku Klux Klan.
Barry told CBN News it's suspected a teeny tiny fraction of troops are dangerous radicals, and purges can easily get out of hand.
While it's important to remove true extremists from our military, we have to be very cautious not to infringe upon the constitutional rights of the other 99.9%.
We lack any concrete evidence that violent extremism is as rife in the military as some commentators claim. Since the start of FY20, 9 soldiers have been separated from the Army for misconduct where extremism was a factor. 9 out of nearly 1 million.
Chairman Smith said that was one of the main reasons to have this hearing, to find out if there really is a problem, and if so, just how big it is. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Paul. Coming up, a handshake a day has students eager to play. One teacher's creative and COVID-friendly way to engage the kids in his classroom.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Finally tonight, a Memphis school teacher is welcoming his students back to the classroom, not with a simple greeting, but get this, Jenna, with 75 elaborate handshakes.
Yeah, that's a lot to memorize. David Jameson memorized and personalized contactless greetings for each of his students in his class. Jameson started a Twitter page called The Dope Educator after his handshake video went viral last year. After being asked if he would still greet students with handshakes this year, Jameson said he doesn't have to physically touch a child to touch their heart. He said he's spending more time with God to build his own spirit so he can lift up students and other adults as well. I love it. Spreading some joy and pouring into others, into his students.
Pretty cool. Thanks for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.